same player, I guess it's just a nod of respect saying we know who the champ is in the building. Might as well get a little bit more showing, but who is he going to be playing
Ooh,
against? And whoa, Mr. Plus, we've never seen this on a feature match in the Spirit Forge season.
that's really cool. Not the more well-known and expected brother of Darius, Draven, but Darius himself, the OG Noxian general that we saw in League of Legends, and I'm really excited to see how he tackles this Kai'Sa matchup. This is essentially a Origins matchup, so we'll see what tools we got out of Spiritforged that boost these decks and how it alters this matchup we've seen before in previous tournaments.
Yeah, well said. I believe what I've seen before, those Darius that used to be the baited hook variants, they got slight little upgrades. Things like long swords make your baited hook targets more
Mm.
reliable to hit. Of course, as we saw Fiora use it to good use. So we'll see. It looks like Obelisk of Power started things off for Kai'Sa. But if there's any indication of how this matchup might be going on or might be going forward, we know traditionally Kai'Sa doesn't have a hard time against aggressive decks like Darius, right? Do you remember how that matchup was in set one?
Yeah, in my experience, it was very much like you said with the baited hook. It was a matter of whether or not Darius was ever able to see the baited hook on curve, hit the units he needed to hit, and kind of snowball that lead, get a big Draven Vanquisher out there, or sorry, the set one Draven that increases his might with points, and be able to go over the top of the Kai'Sa's removal. So we'll see if he's going for a similar strategy, but usually I tend to agree with you that Kai'Sa typically has the answers to deal with Darius as he spams a lot of little units on the board. But if there's the advent of maybe he's playing something like Fiora, like you mentioned earlier, where he's putting BF swords in the deck or long swords. That way, when he does activate that baited hook, he can get something bigger out, like a harness dragon or something of that sort.
Yeah, we'll see because we did see the lot of more the Kaiser lists that are coming into recent regional events. They've been really heavy on removal, so that could be spelling doom for the likes of Darius, of course. Unless there's sometimes with a beta hook where you just have one too many tokens, one too many units. So we'll see if that's the kind of Darius that's coming in. Because I would imagine if we're showing Omega Zero on stream, he went undefeated in round two, so he probably ended up winning his round three. This might very well be two undefeated players, and there was only 5 Dariuses in today's regional event. So out of the 5, one of them is looking to be making a great run today. Can they continue though and take that run and get a win over the national champion? That would be worth writing home about.
That would definitely be a big upset to see the national champion fall down to a leader that not many people have their eyes on at the current junction in the meta.
Right. But here we go, guys. It is round 4 of today's event. Kai'Sa versus Darius. Let's see who's going to be getting the upper hand. I believe it was Kai'Sa on the draw, but one thing I've noticed off the get-go is that Darius elected to go with Valmon's Lair, which tends to be a slight counter against those Dariuses, those Kai'Sa survivors that the Kai'Sa side tends to bring. But maybe this newer age of Kai'Sa not really running as many of those as we saw in the past. Because in round 2, I don't think we saw that many Dariuses, if you remember. I don't know. I think you were at your pre-release, actually.
Yeah, I was still sitting in my local shop, so I didn't get to catch that. But we did see an optimal start with the extra rune from Kai'Sa getting that Yordle out to get a turn one draw. But the offset of that is now Darius gets to do 2 units on his first turn, thanks to the Noxus hopeful.
Yeah, early on in the Origins, when it first came out, I was all over Darius. He was my favorite Legend to play. I just thought the Legend ability was so powerful, right? But when Legion comes online, aka when you just play another card, you get a whole nother energy. So it's another way of ramping into your units, ramping in. Actually, is it only for units? Let me read it.
No, it's just one floating energy, and I agree. I think that that unit or that leader has been very underexplored personally. I think that there's a lot of potential with an effect like that to do some really spicy stuff and attempt to make a deck similar to what we've seen with Fiora, but maybe a little bit more aggressively slanted, having access to extra runes the same turn rather than Fiora essentially getting that extra rune the next turn with her leader effect.
Oh, a nice little tech we've never seen in the past for Darius is a Gem Jammer in the hand, allowing one of these units to get ganking when they are ready to course. So sending in the Poro, getting one, Rex sending in the Hopeful on the Valmon, since you're most likely going to be stuck there for the remaining of the game till you hit the trash. What does he want to do with the remaining 6 runes? He has the champion available, but you probably want to leave that to where you kind of want to push against a battlefield. So the falling stars, a little bit of what Kai's known for, giving her a taste of
Oh.
her own medicine, taking out double Poro in the back line. Good stuff.
Denying the potential to make those 2 gold if he was able to get those Poros to come in and get over that Noxus hopeful potentially. That's going to potentially set this Kaisa back a fair amount, but we'll see how Kaisa adapts to having to deal with some of her own medicine and the falling star taking out her back row units.
Right, and somehow it didn't seem like it caused Darius all that much because I guess we were on Obelisk of Power. So with the Legion ability, wait, it was a falling star into Darius in ready. That seemed like he had, I guess he's left with 3 runes, so that does make sense because recycle 2, one for Darius. Wait, he must have had one, or no, and then one recycle for Darius himself. Right. So going back a
Yeah.
bit on rune economy, but I think it was worth it. You got rid of 2 units and you play out your big boy.
And that's another great part about playing Darius. We've seen Darius in set 1, the champion unit, be a huge boon for decks like Annie, even for Kaisa. Any red deck really loves to see Darius Trifarian, and by utilizing the Darius leader, you get to just start with that leader on board in your
Hmm.
chosen champion zone.
Oh yeah, probably one of the better top 3 cards out of set 1 and decently strong in Spiritforged as well. Let's see though what Omega Zero has in mind. And yes, I actually looked at the score now. Both of these players are undefeated. We have a 3-0 Darius on the feature match. It makes it even more exciting to see what kind of tech he's been working with. But a classic tech is the Watcher coming down, fully exhausting his runes to do that. Is it just to allow this Yordle to trade against the Hopeful? Because it looks like he's just offering the trade here.
It will actually clear over being 2 might over to the Noxus Hopeful's 1 might thanks to the -3 from the Watcher. No ability to accelerate the Watcher, unfortunately. 1 rune short, so not able to double conquer. But seeing the Darius tapped out, unable to pull out any type of combat tricks or removal like this Hidden Blade we're now seeing in hand, he was able to go ahead and utilize his Thousand Tail Watcher to remove the Noxus Hopeful off the board.
And this Darius looking to be tech for a lot of what Spiritforged is bringing to the table. All the way on the left side of his hand is actually a salvage. You kill a gear, so expecting to verse against the likes of Ezreal, against Aurelius, take out those Guardian Angels mid-combat. So I like what I'm seeing. On top of that, on top of all of that getting you value, you do get a +1 draw at the very end of that ability, or end of that spell as well. So it has some good options. It looks like taking the more straightforward one, and just kind of praising the hand right now. Darius doesn't feel all that bad because you're able to get readied, and we saw there's a second card in there like a gem jammer, allowing him to kind of squeeze his way and gank to the other battlefield. But I guess you're still effectively stuck on Obelisk for the turn, allowing the Watcher to just kind of pick it up. But in theory, I see where there's some playline potentials for sure with Gem Jammer and Darius.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool way to get around his own Vilemon's lair as well. So, in an instance where he's able to trigger the Darius to restand itself while also giving it ganking from the Gem Jammer, he can move the Darius over to the Obelisk of Power and then have the ability to move Darius back to base if he needs, as opposed to just leaving it stranded there in Vile's Maw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perhaps what he has in mind as a potential game plan when he does play Valmons, but the salvage simply to draw. This has been errated for everyone that hasn't been keeping up with the rules. Omega Zero was the natural champion. He's like, wait a minute, when I played in these events, it wasn't working that way. But basically paying 2 for a draw 1 doesn't feel the best, but kind of goes to show he probably does not have the best of hands. Has a Legion rearguard and a Jam Jammer if he uses his daring ability, if he wants to completely tap out to make as most use as he can this turn. unless you leave the hidden blade available. How are you feeling about this, Mr. Plus? Are you trying to leave something like a hidden blade? I guess we're just gonna hide it instead.
Yeah, it looks like we're already seeing that he's willing to kind of take away his rune pool rather quickly based off of that previous turn. We saw the Falling Star into the Darius Trifarian taking 3 runes back, and now he's operating on a lower rune total. And once again, by hiding this potential hidden blade, I believe it was, that he is comfortable playing on a lower rune count, and hopefully having his leader ability be utilized to offset that lower rune count.
Yeah, very true. We've seen the some Darius decks like Beta Hook. They tend to thrive at lower rune counts, so perhaps keeping a bit of the same strategy from before, but does most likely hide that hidden blade on the Darius. Funny enough, Darius should be ready right now since he played 2 cards, but it really is not going to make too much of a difference as it does only really impact cards like Aurelia, Fairvent, and things like that. You're not going to be able to get the +2 on defense as you most likely only have a hidden blade with those 2 energy, but you don't even have a order rune. Funny enough, you just have all red runes, so you couldn't even play one, which is probably why he chose to hide it instead. So I'm liking the positioning so far, but not feeling the most confident for Darius, honestly.
Interesting choice. We're seeing him utilize Falling Star to take out the back row because he already is confident that this Watcher is going to be able to deal with Darius. Actually going to Obelisk of Power. No, he's not. He's got another plan to take out this Darius. And using his hero power to pay the deflect cost to get rid of that Pouty Poro. And now just putting a big 6 mana 12/12 essentially in his base.
Oh yeah, one of the best cards in the current game. Trying to put a good unit battlefield presence, or board presence I should say, online. And now looks like the pickup for Darius is a great card. A Death Grip can come into play at the best moments if you have something to sacrifice, but the Gem Jammer, as we said before, allowing the Darius to kind of escape scot-free over the other side. But you don't have 7 just yet. You're at least at the very... Oh, is there a world
But
you want to go Death Grip?
with the Death Grip,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, perhaps we do see the Death Grip to kill the Gem Jammer and pump this Darius up to 9 so he can gank over and take out the Watcher. A pretty spicy play. That would be really cool to see, but he's obviously thinking very hard about it, whether or not he needs to keep this Gem Jammer on board for future play lines or just to have presence in general, as it's starting to get really difficult for him to establish anything with only 2 cards left in hand.
You know, something we didn't take to account, if you do Death Grip Gem Jammer, you don't have a hidden blade target because you're trying to move everything out of that battlefield. So instead of the Death Grip, going for just the more card draw. Let's see if he finds some answers in that. It looks like it was another Gem Jammer and another card I couldn't catch and make out of. But at the minimum, Darius does go up to 7, so could offer the 1-1, but he definitely wants to win it here. Is Death Grip a 1 or is it 2?
It's a 2, and we're seeing another Gem Jammer come out, this time to the base, going to basically do nothing, and that this Darius already has ganking. But we are going to see the Death Grip come out after all, drawing into what I believe is a second Gem Jammer, as I didn't see it in hand prior, now being able to use that Death Grip to get over this Watcher and still potentially be able to keep this Darius alive on defense, but no, actually, he's tapped out. It looks like this Darius is probably not long for this world, but at least he was able to clear out the Watcher.
Yeah, he doesn't feel too confident on holding that battlefield, but I think he got the value. He did the work. He was able to conquer hold on Valmons and then gank over for at least 3 points, which is about half of the total points. And Darius going up and up in points, going to 6, but Omega Zero starts to climb to try to turn things back in his favor. Not that he's completely out of it, but Darius seemingly having good control this entire game. The one caveat for Darius players is they can get rolling and rolling really good, but at one point it's almost like they run out of resources. They don't have a lot of card recursion. Maybe Spiritforged changes a couple things. We saw the salvage, we saw the Death Grip also gets a +1 draw, because Darius of the old usually has a tough time keeping up with Kaiser, and just simple hand advantage But it looks like two can play at that game with the Ferris Forerunner coming down.
Yeah, Darius is definitely hurting for cards in hand, which is why we saw him use the Hidden Blade on his own unit just to try to get some more cards in hand and have some more options available to him. He does have a healthy point lead. He has some time to work with, which is why he was able to use his turn to just establish the Forerunner and prepare to potentially go for game next turn. But as we see this rune advantage come out from Kaisa, it may become difficult to start conquering these battlefields with the amount of spells Kaisa will have in hand and runes to utilize them, as we see a smoke screen in hand, a Hextech Ray, potentially some other removal spells to get rid of this Forerunner and anything else that Darius might try to establish next turn.
Yeah, you make a really good point. We've reached the point in this game where Kai's able to leave things available on its opponent's turn. So at least 2 energy for something like Mr. Plus said, the smoke screen coming down, 3 energy for the follow-up things like a Hex Tech, and you have a Watcher to try to close things out. As soon as Omega Zero hits that critical 6 points, they are going to be feeling good with the Watcher in hand, most likely allowing them to close things out the following turn. That's something Rex wishes he had in hand or had available in these colors, because he's at 6. He wants to conquer 2 battlefields in the same turn, but so much easier said than done from his position, as he doesn't really seem to have the card currently in hand. Forerunner, a great card, but you can't really split in two until he dies, so you're not looking to conquer at both this turn. Is there a world Darius could probably win, or is it a little bit out of reach, you think?
Well, he left up 5 runes, so we know that he for sure has Smokescreen and Hextech Ray. I'm not sure what some of the other cards are. I believe there might be a Falling Star in hand as well, but of course not action speed, so not being able to be utilized on defense here. So it could be a difficult task to try to get this final 2 points on this turn with only 1 unit on board and no accelerate units in hand. But we do see Bryn here, Thundersong, which is one of those units that is very powerful at closing out the game by stopping your opponent from being able to utilize all those runes that they left up on defense.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I think this turn, if you make as best as you can, just try to spread wide or go wide and try to deploy as much units as you possibly can. And then Omega Zero, the most points he's gonna be able to go to is 7. Then the Brynir Thunder Song as a closing option on the following turn might be the best approach to try to get into a winning position. Because right now, I don't think there's too many more options. You don't want to use the Brynir. Okay, Darius, wait a minute. Oh, no, no. He does have a whole lot of combat tricks, like you mentioned, right? The smoke screen. I think I see a stupefying hex tech. In a world where Kaiser was completely tapped out, this actually might have won the game.
Yeah, if we just had these units on board already, 2 units established, and we were able to get the Bryn here out, this could have been a wrap. But being only on the Forerunner going into this turn, he's not able to go for a double cat conquer on this turn. There's potential he could try to go for something like a stack onto one battlefield and go for a hold strategy, but that's typically weak to the cards that we've seen in Kaisa, like the Watcher.
Looks like Rex is just going for it, saying, what do you have under those runes? As a side note, for those wondering what those icons slash rankings are below the names, it's not TFT things, it's not League of Legends. It's actually over there in China. They have their own Riftbound leaderboard based off locals placement. So locals all have a connected system, and you get rankings. I believe that's what I've been told, but if Omega Zero says challenger, unless he's been grinding hard at locals, maybe that's just his ranking they give him for leaderboard position. Actually, that makes sense. I think leaderboard position in China for Riftbound, and because he won the National Open, he's highly up there.
Interesting choice from the Kaisa here, not to kill the Forerunner outright with her removal spells, but to just ping it with the Hextech Ray and allow it to trade with his Kaisa unit. So now we have the 2 mech tokens in the back row. What could have been cool, I've been seeing this card, I saw this card a lot today in the pre-rift, and I would like to see maybe some more experimentation in these lists, is Bushwhack, giving that
Right.
ability to have your units come in ready, similar to how Orange had challenge in set one, something like that in the scenario that when your Forerunner dies, all of a sudden those 2/3/3 units come in ready and able to go in and go for game here would have been cool to see, but we'll see what he goes for here. I think he's still a little bit concerned about what Kaisa might have up his sleeve for this Darius Trifarian. He doesn't want to just throw this body away and then be stuck with only the 2/3/3 units going into the next turn.
And Rex still prioritizing conquering. You're at 6. I almost just want to see him stay patient because now you're just leaving one of your units exposed onto this battlefield. And Omega Zero, like we said before, only able to get up to 7 points. I wonder if this is a bit of an overextension on Rex's side. If you had a Darius plus 2 mechs on the Brynir Thundersong turn, you have to be feeling a little bit easier about that because Smokescreen can most likely... is Smokescreen action reaction? I think it still says battlefield nonetheless, so you can't even do any, or let me double check because I haven't seen that card in a while.
Well, we did see in the opening hand for Kaisa a Time Warp, which he obviously elected to mulligan to the bottom of his deck. So it's kind of a question of whether or not this list runs more than Time Warp. I'm not familiar with this list myself, but if there are multiple copies of Time Warp in this list, perhaps he's playing to an out of digging for that second or third copy of Time Warp to go for game that way, and hence why he has been so diligent about keeping his rune count high in case he does draw that Time Warp to go for game of Time Warp.
Yeah, we saw it in round 2. It almost came up, but instead kind of splitting some might around, getting enough because of the Watcher, allowing the 4 and the 3 to get getting... Oh, and the Falling Stars.
Wow.
That has to be the final nail in the coffin. Rex getting so close to tasting victory in this round 1, but Kaisa looking to have a game plan all along. The Watcher plus the Falling Star, the 1-2 punch, making all the difference, and I think that should be GG despite what you have. I think the fist bump's going out, and Omega Zero looking to be really well positioned going forward. I mean, it's just game 1, but I have a feeling,
Yeah.
especially this matchup, he might just go undefeated after we're all said and done.
I just want to point out I like that little hand gesture that Rex did there. Like, come on, give me your hand. Just fist bump me already. Let's go to the next game.
Let's save some time.
Void
That's
Gate.
different.
Okay, and then is this the set 2 battleground that allows you to draw based on if you control the other battleground?
Yeah, I'll pull it here on the screen. When you conquer here, draw 1 for each other battlefield you or your allies control. So Seat of Power is what it's called. And I guess he's just playing that since he goes wide. He's more often than not going to be holding more both battlefields, especially being on the play. I see what he's doing. I think Seat of Power is a battlefield that thrives when you're on the play, when you're able to get onto these battlefields quicker than your opponent, which is probably what's going to be going down in this game number 2 of this round number 4. Can this undefeated Darius take down the national champ, or is he just going to be falling short in a 2-0 fashion? Let's see what he has, though, starting things off with a Treasure Hoarder, or Honest Broker.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. I think there's... I'm looking forward to the future design of this game in terms of Death Knell as a mechanic and interacting with something like Karthus, which we saw in Origins, a card that allows your Death Knells to trigger multiple times. I think that cards like these, that they keep adding these early cheap Death Knell cards like this Honest Broker, can eventually lead us to see something really cool with a Death Knell centric deck and Karthus at the forefront.
I love that. I hope it comes to fruition eventually in the future, because you know other card games has that where the full game plan is just something around the likes of like a Death Knell. When it dies, you repeat it 2 times, so you get 2 golds, or you get 2 of any other Death Knell. I mean, imagine that with the Forerunner, right? You get 4 mechs. So
Yeah,
there
that's
could be
exactly
some
what
legs to that.
I've definitely thought about that as a potential to make it worth it to include a spicy 1 of or 2 of Karthus into a red-yellow deck, even like a deck like Rek'Sai potentially.
Right, it has to be in those color combinations. I just can't remember because we don't get to see it too often. What might is Karthus on right now?
I believe he's just a 3-mana 3/3, so
Okay.
not very big, easy to remove for something
That's
like Kai'Sa, who
probably,
currently
yeah,
has
that's
double
probably what's
Falling
holding him
Star in
back a
hand.
bit.
Yeah, double falling star is pretty brutal, and we'll see if the falling stars are going to come out next turn and just completely eradicate Darius's board as he's going for what looks to be a stupefy into. Oh, it's not a trade. That's right. Yes, Yordle is at 2 might, so he's just going to get the clean conquer and then use the falling star to put both procs onto the Noxus Hopeful and clear board and set up a Poro in back row for good measure.
Yeah, almost felt like a bit of an unnecessary fallen star, but that is the name of the game when you're having a verse against a Darius. So understanding the matchup, Darius thrives on point tempo. They thrive on having units to try to increase those points and conquer as often as they can on their turn. Taking one away, they do have access to accelerated units like their chosen champion, but they need more than just that to get the upper hand. So I think it felt a bit early, a bit premature for that falling star. But as you mentioned before, he has another one in hand, but trying to give a little bit of vengeance. The falling star coming out from Darius' side, completely eliminating the board and trying to equalize things if he's able to play. I mean, we know he can at the minimum play his champion. Does he want to leave it exposed on a battlefield? Actually, it's only 6 runes, so you don't feel too bad against something like a Watcher. So I think if there's any time, might as well try to develop it now and then push on to not the Void Gate. You don't want to make it
Yeah,
easier.
stay as far
Yeah.
away from there.
Oh, yeah.
Now we go back to Kaisa's turn, coming up on 6 runes, like you said, not able to put down something like a Watcher, but double Hextech and Ray could just really cleanly answer this Darius as well.
Yeah, we'll take a net investment, of course, one for the legend ability and then one for your runes, but that's so much better than something like what Darius would have to do, where it's just straight from the rune deck or straight from the rune pool, I should say. It almost seems like that might be the line of play. They have 6 runes available. You just go down to 5 and then 7 the following turn. So I could see him kind of thinking about that play, but instead trying to go on another line. What is he going to be playing out? The Pharaoh's Forerunner coming online. I think if he was trying to keep him off kind of like game ending points, if we were in the middle of the match, like 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there, the fact that he's only going up to 3, I think gives Kaisa a bit more room to think about their plays and just to set things up. So I can respect this play. But let's see how Rex tries to capitalize on the Darius staying alive one more turn. And these guys are playing very similarly, it looks like.
Yeah, we're seeing exactly which units are the premium units coming out of Spiritforge by being that these two decks sharing the color of red and playing the same units against one another, showing that this Forerunner is just a card that is too valuable to pass up. When you can get it established early, you go for it, and you hope that you can get it to pay off in the following turn with also setting you up for the next turn, which is what makes the card so potent, being a card that carries over turn to turn value.
It really does. It's like we said before, one of the more crucial red cards coming in the Spirit Forge meta. So many good use cases for that card. But throwing it back to Omega Zero, trying to crack a bit of that puzzle that Darius has set up. He has a falling star, but only going to be able to take down one of those units. You can't do the plays you've done before, Watcher into falling star, because he wishes he had enough runes slash the cards for it. But leaning towards the falling stars nonetheless. Does he want to just go ahead and proc the Death Knell already? No, prioritizing the champion, taking that out of the equation, and now pushing on forward, scoring her 2 points, her second point, and just leaving that on the battlefield for now. At the minimum, you do have 2 Hex Techs for any kind of defensive option. So we'll see what he does. Actually, is it just 1 Hex Tech?
It's still 2 Hextechs, which is an interesting play line to consider, being that had he taken out the Ferris Forerunner, he would have those Hextechs to take out the subsequent mechs. However, he may be more concerned about the Darius triggering its effect, going up to 7 and then becoming out of range of removal. So opting to get rid of the Darius now while it's clean and easy, and using that removal on the Ferris Forerunner, and maybe potentially going for another late game hold time warp strategy this game. We'll see if that comes to fruition, as he didn't need it last game, but on a game like this, you might want to go for something like that just to close the door and get that 2-0 win.
Right, that's definitely what Omega Zero is thinking about right now. Because we thought Darius being on the play would go off and be off to the races, of course, but so far a bit slower than I had originally anticipated. Has some decent cards in hand. It looks like the Survivor, the Falling Star off the top. Can you make out what the last card all the way on the left is? It was a double power card.
I did not see. I saw the Kaisa alt art in hand. Interesting to see another overlap of units between the two decks. I'm curious to know what the overall strategy of this deck is, as it seems pretty evident now that we've seen across two games no signs of a baited hook. So this seems to be just a more fair by the numbers, trying to utilize Darius's leader effect to
Mm-hmm.
pump out units rather than going for some high roll baited hook plays.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think we most likely would have seen cards like a matron by now. We probably would have seen the literal baited hook. So I think you're absolutely right. This is more of your standard, if you will, if theirs is even standard in this meta anymore, but more of a traditional build, like you said, by the numbers, just throwing big might units, getting good value cards online, drawing. Oh no, he's saying how'd you pay for four? It was the legend ability, allowing him to draw and draw two because your ally controls the battlefield. So the seed of power coming into play there. Not too bad because we said Darius does tend to draw or tend to lack the draw power a bit later into the game.
Yeah, that's a very cool utilization of Kaisa in tandem with that battlefield to get you that nice draw too. Something that's interesting about that battlefield is that we have cards, other battlefields that allow you to draw in this format as well. On Conquer, something like the Sunken, I believe it's Sunken Temple, the one that allows you to draw off your units mighty on
Mm-hmm.
Conquer, but you have to pay a mana. So having this be just a free draw should you have control of the other battlefield is pretty good for an aggressive deck like Darius that wants to just pressure turn over turn and keep trying to throw units at these battlefields.
Yeah, especially when you understand the perfect lines and sequencing exactly what he did there, pushing forward the Forerunner and then conquering with your Kaiser, accelerated nonetheless. So well done, but something is just telling me both of these units aren't going to be sticking around for too much longer. Luckily, the Forerunner does get replaced by two of those mechs, as we saw on the side of Omega Zero. But there is, for some reason, despite being ahead on points, doesn't feel like they're in a fantastic position. Is it just me, Mr. Plus? Or are you feeling the same way?
Given that we are likely to see both of these units removed this turn, I would probably agree that yes, we look like on the face that we're doing okay, but once these units are off the board and Kaisa starts to get set up with this once again big rune lead, 8 runes to 4, double the rune count, she's gonna have, or he'll have access to more answers, more options than Darius in the late game to close the door on him again like he did last game.
Yeah, you know, he's playing this really well so far. If he has the other, okay, he values getting the draw first. Always get more information before committing to your play is a sign of a really well experienced player. But what I was going to get at, he saw the first play, Hextech Ray, run it with a mech. Are they just going to be doing the exact same play? Hextech Ray, run into it with a mech. That seems to be the more ideal play. But forget what I'm saying when you have all three Hextech Rays in the hand. So get yourself and keep a unit for the defensive trade as well. So trying to equalize things up to 4 to 5. So narrowing the distance on those points. Feeling good. But it did come out a good amount of cards. That was three. All three Hextech Rays in a single turn. Granted, you did draw
Yeah.
one for Kaza, so not the worst negative there.
Draw one for Kaisa as well as because of the sequencing and going ahead and using that final Hextech Ray, he was able to draw off of the other battlefield as well. So
Oh, yeah.
opting to get the additional draw instead of trading the mech for his Kaisa, now Darius actually has the ability to clear the battlefield right back, but what will this Kaisa elect to do with these last two runes, or last 5 runes rather? She does have a Noxus Hopeful that she can deploy for a cheap 2 resources and still leave up some for defense, but I'm not seeing very many defensive spells, it looks like, in the Kaisa's hand at this point. It looks like mostly units over there.
There might be one in the very back being Smokescreen, but I think you're absolutely right. There is a Hopeful, a Pouty Poro, and I would think a Pondering Poro as well. So going on the develop the game, the develop the board state, and that wasn't a Poro, that was a Sentry there. Okay, so has a Poro and I believe a Smokescreen in the hand, but leaving a single rune available. Is there anything this Darius can do? If he's able to conquer both battlefields, they are sitting in a great position because all Hex Tech Rays are gone. You could only account for something like a Stupefy with the single energy, and we know here in the commentator booth, I don't think Kaiser had a Stupefy, nor will it make the biggest of difference. 4 damage on each of those. Talk about
Wow.
value on Void Gate, biting you in the bum a little bit on your own
Yes.
battlefield.
Isn't that something? Utilizing his own battlefield against him to get the double 4 might clear off of a Falling Star. Falling Star being one of the premier poster cards for Kaisa and now being turned against her on her own battlefield. And should Darius have a means to remove this last mech, he can also come in and conquer this other battlefield, go up to 7 and get another draw, and then look to potentially close things out next turn if Kaisa can't do anything with those last 2 cards in hand, as Kaisa seems to be running out of gas.
Yeah, imagine the world where they don't pick up any units following these turns. Sentry just has 1 might. Is it going to be too impactful versus the 3 and the 2 on the current board? I mean, are you taking this trade? If he had another Fury, funny enough, he could have most likely accelerated the Legion rearguard to move up to 7. But, you know, the Falling Stars and normal decks like Darius do come at an expensive cost. All the Fury runes are most likely at the bottom. But I'm loving these plays. The Death Grip one more time, as we saw in game 1. Gonna be choosing the rearguard to add 2 might onto the mech, bringing up to 5 total might. That's gonna be sufficient enough to conquer. On top of the conquer, the Seat of Power one more time, making perfect use of that battlefield, allowing him to keep that card advantage rolling into this endgame 7-4. Are we gonna be heading into a potential game 3, Mr. Plus? I'm liking Darius's position so far, knowing the hand of Kaiser.
As he hides a Hidden Blade as well at the Seat of Power. And I'm not sure, Plus, if you've been able to keep track this time, but I think he's already drawn 3 cards off of that Seat of Power. So
Oh yeah.
that battlefield coming in very clutch for him, as well as the Void Gate coming in clutch for him as well against his opponent. So very
Ooh,
for top deck of the century.
right.
But he's not enough. He knows that would only be able to take out 1 battlefield, and he'll get the hold for the game. So we do get to see a game 3. Very impressive from Darius to show his resolve and not be discouraged by the way that first game 1 went, with how he was so close and then got stuffed at the very end.
Totally see that, but I don't think we've seen any equipment. Maybe he's just not running any, right?
Yeah, no BF swords or anything of the sort, which is interesting, but perhaps just trying to play into his leader's effect, giving him 1 additional energy to tap rather than a power to utilize for things like equipping. He doesn't want to take his rune down any more than he already has to when he's having to pay the full cost for cards like Falling Star, as opposed to, Kaisa's discount of 1 of those power costs on Falling Star.
Yeah, and I believe we saw it around 2. It should be the final battlefield for Kaiser. Should be start tip peak, as we haven't seen it in this best of 3 match. Not the best, but at the minimum, you are on the play. You are able to get onto these battlefields before your opponent. We will see how it all goes down in this final game 3. Who's going to be taking it? Kaiser versus Darius. Both of these undefeated, wanting to keep that streak alive. And you love to see a 2-drop off the get-go to curve out nicely for Kaiser. Is there a 3 or potentially 2 doubles,
I
is what
saw the
Darius wants to
Noxus
see?
Hopeful. Here it is. Yes, the Darius special. Darius going second. Often, this is considered one of the best turn ones in the game to most, that you get to apply a Pouty Poro, 2 mana 2/2 with Deflect, and then use that hero power to bust out a 4/4 alongside it. Something that, as you mentioned previously, using the going first strategy to make a better use of the Seat of Power seems to be the correct line. But in these instances, you could even see the vision for using that going second as well for turns like this.
Oh yeah, I mean Darius has always been a fantastic legend on the draw as well because of the plays that we just saw in the hands that you are able to pick up a 2-drop plus a Noxus Hopeful. Look at what he's starting with. He's able to conquer both battlefields on this push. So I like Omega Zero playing a bit more patiently because of the Hopeful. He doesn't have anything to try to take down. He could have left something open, but then he's not really progressing the game plan going forward. So decides to develop out the Kaiser Survivor, of course. But now, is there a punish? Anything like we saw in the previous game? He's full out Fury runes right now. So a Falling Star could take out the Survivor. We saw the Poro didn't want any business to do with any of these battlefields. So let's see what he decides to do. So far, that opening was really strong. How does he continue
Oh,
on that,
wow.
though?
Very interesting. Just developing a strong hold on the star tip peak to try to enable him to proc the star tip peak and get some extra runes going. Interesting too to see the Draven unit come out, and will we see him utilize that defensive trigger of the Draven to give it the +2 might and use his runes, knowing that he will get that rune back from something like a star tipped peak.
Yeah, I would only imagine so. You would play it on the battlefield if you have intentions of using it that way. And the honest broker closing out the turn. Very optimal plays coming out from Darius, making full use of each and every rune on top of his legend ability. If you're able to do that, the advantages start adding up, right? You're able to get one rune of energy played out onto the board each and every turn. So far up basically 2 runes on your opponents, on paper, hypothetically, but you see it in terms of units on the current board. 4 total units, one of them being that big brother. Or who's older, Draven or Darius?
That part of the lore escapes me, but I'm gonna gamble and
We'll
say
let
that it's
Jack correct us.
Darius.
I was gonna call Draven the big brother. Hopefully I'm right, but yeah, Draven to try to hold down start to peak, and it looks to do so because it's gonna take a whole lot to take down 10 total might defending on start tape. So that should be another rune, another point, allowing Darius to inch his way ahead of his opponent. But then it's some interesting lines because do you retreat the Draven? Do you commit fully on the whole strategy knowing that there's a potential Watcher looming in the distance? So this is going to be very intricate as it keeps going forward.
Another interesting point to take note of is that this is once again the Kaisa's battlefield coming back to bite her a little bit and
Right.
enabling Darius to take advantage of her own battlefield.
Yeah, he makes good use of every battlefield. Looks like Yordle coming down just to recycle a card, leaving 3 available that could signify something like the Smokescreen Hextech Ray, effectively removing any unit you have in mind. -4/3 damage could be good enough to take down the Draven if you wanted to do so, but you're not going to be able to counter regardless because of Noxus Hopeful. This is just a great front that Rex has established on start to peak. 10 might is nothing to scoff at. You feeling comfortable. You know that channel rune is as good as yours. And then that's where things I said before get a little interesting, whether you want to continue on that game plan. I think I'm personally retreating. What about you, Mr. Plus? Are you a little bit more scared of the Watcher potentially coming out next turn?
Yeah, there's definitely the likelihood that we see the accelerated Watcher next turn, so maybe he wants to play around that. But this entire board position and game state is only enabled because of the power of Darius's leader ability. Darius was not on the play this game, but thanks to that, he was able to get out 2 units and then conquer both battlefields in a way that scared his opponent off from moving his Poro up as to not just allow it to die for free against the Noxus Hopeful, which now has given him a point lead, even though he was the player going second, and he can potentially look to go for a hold strategy like he is doing right now for the duration of the game if he thinks he can get around something like a Watcher push.
Right. If I had something like a hidden blade, I'll feel a whole lot more comfortable about it. But it looks like we get our answer. We're wondering, does he have any equipment in hand? At the minimum, he does have the quick draw reaction speed long sword, which makes a whole lot of sense. Something like a long sword into a death grip. You have so much potential right there. Potential energy, as to say, on like trying to make some plays to get over the top of certain battlefields. Does he have a second card? It looks like yes, so uses The on to Darius. So swinging in for 9 total might on the Kaiser is going to take a bit more than a smokescreen because that's going to be bringing him down to 5. And then he still has the Death Grip. Oh, no, no, no. He only has a single rune. I was about to say you could still Death Grip the Broker in the back, but 9 to 4. Is that sufficient, or you think he's going to double up Smokescreen Hextech Ray just to trade?
I believe that's what I would gather is going to happen here. We'll see the smokescreen plus Hextech Ray just to stop this Darius from getting way too ahead on value. And then the interesting point here is that we see the quick draw sword. I'm wondering if this is his only equipment. Now that we've seen one, perhaps there's more to synergize with the Death Grip, like you said. We also do see the last card in hand besides that Death Grip is a Hidden Blade. So if he does get to conquer this Zon Warrens, which card would he discard here?
Right. That's going to be the tricky part. I mean, you don't have enough runes available for either or. I'm thinking you keep the Hidden Blade because you're so down on card advantage. You might as well Hidden Blade your Honest Broker if you can manage to squeeze it in onto a battlefield just to get the +2 draws. But it is a difficult decision nonetheless. But so far, not feeling in the worst position despite just having 2 cards in hand. Omega Zero saying you could have it. Let's see what that Zon Warren's decision will be.
Looks like it's the Death Grip, like you said, and then we'll see now here if he wants to hide the Hidden Blade with this Darius, as we ended up not seeing the Smokescreen and the Hextech Ray come out from Kaisa. I'm wondering what exactly he was intending to do by utilizing or leaving those 3 runes up for defense, if perhaps he was not taking into account that longsword, as it's the first time we've seen it in this best of 3.
Yeah, because we know they're in there. We see the and a spell we haven't seen in a very long time. A Cathian Rain coming down to do some pain onto Darius's board. That's gonna be a collective total of 12 damage, 6 times. And actually, it's been a errata, but Darius doesn't really have any tools to kind of make full use of that errata. But choosing targets, so 4, 4, and then what is that? 4 remaining.
Yes, so he's probably going to look to just finish this off with the Hextech Ray here now. Yep. So Hextech Ray is going to clean it up, but the reaction speed Hidden Blade in response to, like you said, rebolster that hand, get 2 more cards in there. Looks like he drew into another Hidden Blade, ironically enough. But what was that third card? A Blood Rush, actually.
Not too bad. It looks like he is making full use of the set 2 cards. So at the very least, you do have that longsword to equip onto the Honest Broker to push into Zon Warrens. But a Cathian Rain, no matter what point in the game, is sure to be devastating on your opponent, effectively removing everything he worked so hard to build up. That's what Kaiser players are known for, taking a bit of the remaining hope available. And Rex felt like he was in a strong position, but now full battlefield control on Omega Zero. Granted, those are kind of low to the ground, just a Poro 2 might, a Yordle 2 might, so you're not going to have the hardest time to take those down. If you draw something like a Darius, you feel a whole lot better about that. But let's see if this Conqueror is going to be going through, and that it does. So Rex find himself at 5. Does he have something to try to double conquer? Because 6 will be that sweet spot going forward, especially when we take into account Omega Zero still sitting at just 3 points currently. There's a big difference in points so far.
And would you look at that? We do see a Bushwhack in the list. That's very cool. So we'll see if that card ends up coming into play here, as that might have been the card he just hid right there at Zon Warrens. And an interesting board state, as it looks like Longsword has the Broker equipped. Okay, there we go. We're going to fix it.
You know, is that more of a bluff, Mr. Plus? Because he's hiding Bushwhack, but it's not going to be doing anything defensively, right?
Not typically, you won't see anything really come out of it defensively, but it's just a way to utilize. We see this Darius deck is geared towards being as efficient as possible with its resources. So using that card as a hidden card just to get a free draw off of the tapped power that he's chosen to recycle for it. I don't hate the play, but we'll see if he thinks that it might be able to stick around in fact because of perhaps some other tricks he has in his hand, and then he'll be able to use it on his own turn. But more than
Right.
likely, Kaisa will have the removal for it, as we do see a Void Seeker come out, dealing 4 damage. But oh, it's actually a
Oh.
Hidden Blade. The Bushwhack did not get hidden.
Yeah,
So
even
just
better though.
another
I was
draw
wondering
2.
that probably wasn't too ideal, but this makes so much more sense. You get the gold, you get the +2 draws, and the Void Seeker all for nothing. That's a big spell getting reduced to just 2 draws on your side. So feeling decent about that. You do have at least one more unit, and that is the beautiful thing about equipments in these next set. They always return to base. You're always able to attach it with things like the gold on board. So I'm liking what I'm seeing. You kept the bushwhack, so if you do draw 1 or 2 more units, you're most likely going to be able to have them readied in that same turn. This is about the most runes we've seen Darius have in this best of 3 so far.
And some of that is because of the start to peak. So very interesting to see how this matchup is turning out. And like you mentioned, the equipment just goes so long, such a long way in providing recurring value. And it's one of the reasons, like we spoke about last week, that I am such a big fan of utilizing a lot of equipment in these decks, because we saw in the Origins meta how powerful things like Discipline was. Just a simple 2 mana +2 might, draw a card. And something like Longsword on its face seems just worse, that it's only 2 mana, it costs a power, and it doesn't draw you card. You would think, oh, okay, I see why people don't want to utilize this over something like a Discipline.
Right.
But being able to use it over and over again, especially when you have cards like this Honest Broker that generate you some gold to get that equip back for free, you start to see how these equipment really add up over the course of a game.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that puts it slightly over the edge is the simple fact that there's a quick draw keyword text on that card as well, enabling it to come down at reaction speed. Of course, there is actually a secondary longsword as well, but I like Rex position. It's not phenomenal, of course, but it's decent nonetheless. Zon Warren's going to be picking up a Legion rearguard. I think your best bet would be to spam harder than the falling stars could come down. Okay, at least you're in the window of a 4, so falling stars can't take it down, and a longsword onto something like a pouty poro will also bring him up to 4 might, so you're out of the realm of a falling star. But something like a singularity might be a little bit crazy, but we haven't seen singularity in the round 2 we saw Mega Zero, and now in round 4 we haven't seen it in all best of 3, so perhaps he's just not even running it, honestly.
Yeah, and we do see Darius elect to just establish as many units in his base as possible to try to push for game potentially next turn. We'll see if something like Bryn here Thundersong comes off the top of the deck to enable that push for game. It could be a huge boon to ending this game and being a surprising upset to see Darius, like we said, a leader that we don't hear a lot of hype about, come out and defeat one of the best decks in the game of Riftbound. And not only that, but being piloted by
Oh
the
yeah.
defending champ.
Oh yeah. That last part there is the key piece. You have to be super impressed if Darius ends up getting it. The Bellows Breath trying to do some damage on the 3 backline units. You're able to pay the gold or the deflect with one of your golds. So 1 damage. Oh, he repeats it. So 2 damage, effectively removing the rear guard and the pouty poro. But that's gonna be 2 deflect costs because of the pouty poro getting targeted twice. There's a whole lot of runes gonna be recycled. 2 for the 1 for Bellows Breath, 1 more for the repeat, and then 2 more because of the pouty poro. So that was exactly what they needed. And to make matters worse, Mr. Plus, the whole board is getting removed. We thought Rex had a slight glimmer of hope, but things are fading away now. Unreal. I really thought Darius can get it done.
Very interesting turn of events. That Bellows Breath coming in huge, and the gold that Kaisa had actually being a pretty big help in paying for that amount of deflect and repeating. She ends up ending the turn still having 7 runes in total, which means next turn having access to something like Watcher if this Darius can't figure out a way to close this game on this turn.
You know, if they had one more unit, perhaps, but I think the simple fact that there was, I believe, two smoke screens available on Omega Zero's side, and he has exactly two runes.
Oh,
The Vi is going to be
what a
one way
cool
of conquering
play.
one. Uh-oh. Let's see what goes down. If there was a world without the double smoke screen, I mean, we have all-knowing knowledge. We know those cards are in hand, but this is the perfect play. If there wasn't those cards, this might just very well be the winning play. Bushwhack into Vi into Kaiser. We've never seen this done before.
Yes, and then we're going to see how many cards he's going to try to recycle for this Vi to make it not susceptible to something like the double smoke screen. I'm already lost count of how many cards he's going for here, but
You
I'm
send
assuming
it,
he's
everything.
going for broke. Yeah, something massive. This Vi is about to be huge. There's no way Vi is getting taken out by whatever removal this Kaisa has. Doing something out of Annie's textbook. Coming in, taking out the Noxus Hopeful, gonna get the discard draw, and he's looking for something to potentially remove this Watcher so that he can move.
Oh,
The Piercing Light is just the thing he needed to clear this Watcher and the
unbelievable. The
Yordle.
top deck piercing light, enabling both of those units to get destroyed. A smokescreen only reduces might, but if you have nothing to trade damage, Rex getting it done. Oh, never mind the Hextech Ray. He was so close, so close. I completely forgot about the Hextech Ray.
Ah,
And I think that
you can see
might
the
be
defeat
it
in his
because
face a little bit. Yeah.
oh wow, I was so excited for Rex. Almost inches away. I would say centimeters away from getting victory. But now he's gonna have to hold that Zon Warrens for dear life, and it just doesn't seem too likely with another smokescreen in hand that we know.
Yes, and then also of note, by forcing him to go down in runes here, he's not at a rune count that can support an accelerated Watcher. So that Watcher in hand can't come out and double conquer for game here. He can use it to clear the vibe, but without being able to close out the game here, there's a potential for Darius to answer right back, unless Darius did in fact expend his entire hand, which
Yeah, I think
it
he
looks like he did.
did. Yeah, he has nothing in
What an
hand, but I think I see a
explosive turn of
falling
events.
star, Mr. Plus. This is not a good predicament for Darius. A falling star should be exactly enough to do the 5 or 6 damage total, but to clear the 5 total might on Vi. And then, I mean, you have a longsword, but with only drawing one card per turn, you can't even activate your Darius legend ability to play anything else unless, no, you can't even hit and blade anything because you're not going to be drawing. So things are not looking too good. The Watcher coming down. Forget the falling star. Might as well get a unit onto the board to try to conquer the following turn. And that should be good enough. You don't have anything in hand. So that is straightforward math. Going up to 7. Pitching one for the Zon Warrens. And now it all on the hands of Rex. Can he draw anything? I just think it's over, isn't it?
It seems that way, and unfortunately as well, because what an amazing play that was in an attempt to go for game there, but top decking the falling star is not going to be enough to get him back into this one, as I am just now noticing that we are in turns, but it looks like this is the last turn, as he will not be able to stop Kaisa from going for game, but he is
hmm
going to go for one final Hail Mary, take out the Noxus Hopeful, hope that Kaisa can't accelerate another unit onto board next turn and double conquer for game and get one more shot, but there's not really anything left in the deck that he can top deck to squeak out a win here.
I think the
Oh,
best
and
is
we
what he's
see another
paying for.
Watcher.
Oh, and
He just
of
shows it to him.
course, the top deck Watcher bringing it home, but nonetheless, very impressive performance coming at the hands of Darius. No one would have expected an undefeated Darius in round 3 or round 4 and giving a run for his money against Omega Zero. Well played, thoroughly impressed, and almost got there. I want to say against any other legend, that Bushwhack play would have won. Against Kaiser with a double smokescreen and just Kaiser shenanigans, that might give you trouble. But I think any other legend like Draven, Aurelia, or anything, that would have been a game-winning play.